This is Infection, the survival podcast, recorded live on Tuesday, September 8th, 2020, episode 295. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your source for the latest information on survival video games. We bring you the latest news, reviews, updates, and more each and every week. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. If you want to check out my IT blog, it's dudeinit.com. You can also follow me on pretty much every other social media under that same tag as well. And of course, our website, which has been for the past 294 weeks, is infectionpodcast.com. Fresh off of Labor Day vacation, Mr.
Yes.
Brian with an I, Aldridge. Hello, Mr. Brian. How are you?
I am doing very well, and hopefully you had a great weekend and a great Labor Day.
Oh, yeah.
But I went up into the mountains with no cell phone service and
How's
enjoyed
that?
myself. It was good. It's weird. I actually leave my phone at the cabin, and I don't think about it for the whole day because there's Wi-Fi in the cabin, so I can get basic, I get emails and things like that, but there's no cell phone service, no text messages. So
See, if you had an iPhone, you'd got all your messages pretty much over Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I don't know why. See, for some reason it doesn't do that. Like
Android doesn't do that.
Yeah, I
SMS over
can I can make a phone call out over Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
but I can't receive phone calls and I can't text.
you should
So
get
I
an
don't know if
iPhone.
that's something they're over. No, I don't want an iPhone. That's all right.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah, so
It's a
that
service
was
they
kind of nice. Yeah, I'll look into it and see. I wonder. I mean, the alternative is just porting it over to Google Voice and texting through that, but that's not worth it. So
No, you definitely don't want to do that. Well,
No.
yeah, now that we've gotten well off board. Well, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, if you want to find me, you can find me at Brian Aldridge on Parler, or you can go check out my blog, biteoftech.com. And of course, our website, if you go to infectionpodcast.com, you can go on there on the right-hand side, and I encourage you to join our server on Discord. And if you do that, we've got a news channel. You can submit news every week. If there's a topic that you think we should be covering, or even a game, anything that you think we should be covering that we're not, you just post to that news channel. We review that every week before the show to see if it's something we should cover. Also, our Steam group, if you want a notification right before the live show starts, you happen to be sitting at your computer, if you're a member of that group and you have Steam open, it'll just pop up a little notification about 5-10 minutes before we start, and you can jump in here and join us live. Also, we have our Twitch, our YouTube, our BitChute, and our DLive video forms of the podcast. And so if you want to watch us live, we have it live on a number of those platforms, but we also have the video forms uploaded there. So you can go and watch those after the fact. And then we have our audio versions, and those are on the lower right-hand side for whatever kind of device you might want to use. If you're interested in the pre and post show, you can go to our Infection Podcast Extras channel there, and that Judd takes care of that for us. If you want to follow along while you're listening or watching after the fact, you can jump to the current episode, and this will be 295, and you can follow along with all the show notes and videos and links that we discuss and are reviewing as we're doing the show. So that's really helpful if you want to kind of see what we're going off of and get your own opinions as we're going through the process. If you want to support us, you can go through amazon.infectionpodcast.com or humble.infectionpodcast.com. And we have people that throughout the show and throughout the week give us our Prime Gaming subs, and that really helps, and that pays for PAX, which would be happening right now. If we were doing PAX, we would be at PAX.
Well, this would be our first show back.
Yeah, so this would be the post PAX show.
Yeah.
So
PAX would have been this past weekend. Which, honestly, Brian,
probably with Labor Day, and
I'm not glad it didn't happen. By the way, that was me. I'm not glad that it didn't happen, but with everything being so chaotic, just having moved in and whatnot, it's probably for the best. I would have rather have been in Seattle at PAX, but in my current situation in place, that it worked out pretty well. Speaking of support, Brian, I do want to thank a couple of individuals, including our friend Big Woody Sauce and Bobby J, both for hitting us up with the resubscriptions here on Twitch. Ross hitting us up with 22 months, and Bobby J with 11 months. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It is greatly appreciated. More than I think you can imagine. It it will alleviate a lot of stress when we are planning for this wonderful show that we these wonderful trade shows that we attempt to attend each and every year. I do want to give another shout out, Brian. I don't know if you saw this in our Discord, but our friend Falcon runs a 5M server, which is the GTA.
And he runs that on our server. So
I didn't know that.
No, we're running that on our server. Yep.
So the 5M is the it's like the role play version of GTA 5 Online, and we've actually got a billboard in the game, which I thought was cool. So if you're driving around Minor Park Boulevard in East Vinewood,
perfect.
you can see the Infection Survival Podcast billboard in the game. And then somebody was joking about getting the podcast live into the game. That
is very possible.
So that would be kind of neat.
We'll have to look into that and see if we want to throw a Infection Podcast radio station, or throw maybe we can go into the mix on their talk station on there or something. Yeah.
And now Ross is asking about, Ross, how do people get information on that server, Brian? I know there's a separate Discord.
Yeah, I would
in our server.
I would talk to Falcon, because then he can get you all of what you need to download, how, if you need help getting 5M on there, and then what port and everything that he's using, because I haven't tried it yet. I've tried the role play or the custom servers on 5M, and that is a lot of fun, but I haven't tried ours yet. So
we should probably do that.
If you're interested in that, yeah, we should go in there, have everybody. I mean, it's a big download, so you want to make sure people get it all ready and running and tested. But that would be a fun thing to go through and see how people do it role playing, and see if we actually do it.
We'll have to schedule that out for a couple of weeks, but we'll go ahead and do that. So, thanks to Falcon for that. I thought that was pretty neat to see. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. What's going on in your world, Brian? I obviously no video games this past week. I set up all my consoles, and I had to make the very hard decision of not setting certain consoles up, because I know that there's next gen consoles coming, which at some point I will be getting. And so I didn't set up the Xbox 360, because all of those games are pretty much backwards compatible. I left out the PS3, left out the Wii U, and I think I set everything, and the PlayStation 1, and I set everything else up. So, yeah.
Well,
hard decisions.
Yeah, I know that's the thing is I used to have all these old school consoles hooked up to a TV, and it's just like, I'm not really playing them. Yeah. So now I just have all the modern stuff I'm actually going to play.
It looks cool. It's, one of those things like you've already got fundraise for Nick. No, I've already got the consoles. They're just in boxes instead of out in my living room. But yesterday I did, a couple people were like, "Oh man, is that a is that a this or is that a that?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it is." And that's kind of cool. That's why it's there. It's more of like a knickknack than it is a physical. They all hook up. Yeah,
you don't generally want to play it, but
but they look cool. And if somebody's ever like, "Oh man, can I play Mario Kart 64?" I'd be like, "Yeah, just click the SD video switcher to the N64 tab and turn the TV on, and bam, there it is." So I thought that's pretty neat. But
now I want to talk about something really quick that isn't really news, but I just want to mention it because it's a game of my generation, right? So, have you ever heard of Rise of the Triad?
No, never.
Never heard of Rot. Okay. So this is a game that was back in the Doom days, it's a 90s shooter. One of the first shooters, after Wolfenstein and after the initial Doom and all that. And so this is one of the first multiplayer ones I ever played. I used to have someone dial in because it supported dial-up modem for playing with other people. So I would dial up modem with my friends to play this game against them. And they're making a remaster of that next year. So this is one of my very first video games that I ever got. They're making a remaster of Rise of the Triad. So if anybody who's an old school gamer like me that remembers playing Rise of the Triad, that's interested in it, keep an eye on it, because they are doing an official remaster. It is licensed. This is the good old Rise of the Triad.
This looks
you got to think of when this. Well, you got to remember when this thing came out. This was amazing in the day.
94.
Yeah, 1994. You got to imagine what computers were like back then.
That's 3 years before I was born.
Yes, 3 years before you're born, and this is what it looks like.
Yeah, interesting.
But
That's
yeah.
cool.
So this game, they're doing a remaster. It'll be, they can do it on Switch. It'll be on console and everything else. So.
We're seeing kind of a rebirth of that, Brian. There's a lot of, obviously Doom is all of a sudden kind of the two new Doom games. I bought Doom Eternal. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but Doom 2016 and then the new Doom Eternal have gotten incredibly favorable reviews. They're both, from what I've played 2016. I haven't played Eternal. From what I've read, they're both incredible games. They have banging soundtracks. They'll make your heart race. Your hands will sweat while you're playing the game, and it seems like you're seeing maybe a little flash pan of some of these 90s style simple shooters. And it's funny because as complicated as the new Doom was in the 2016 version I'm talking about, at the end of the day, it was pretty simple. You go stage to stage and the game kind of unravels. Now, obviously the world's a lot more in depth. It looks a whole hell of a lot better than the original Doom and Duke Nukem 3Ds and games like that did. But and maybe this is more of things starting to simplify a little bit, Brian. I think
they need to. I think it gets very difficult as the game gets more and more complex because everything seems to just kind of go towards getting more and more complex. It gets very difficult to design that game and make it towards playable. I mean, and not riddled with bugs or not something that people are hacking and taking advantage of weird glitches because they've made the game too complex. It used to be, some of the best games back in the day were simple as far as the concept of them were simple. And over the years, they've gotten more and more complex and they have to put more and more things in there and you have to have all these special abilities and that can be fun, but when you're wanting to get your heart rate up, as you were saying, and really just kind of get a rush from playing, you need something that's simple enough to where you can continue moving forward and keeping a fast pace without having to slow down to think. And there's not a lot of games nowadays that do that. Everything is so fast that or it has so much stuff that if you go too fast, you're going to miss something. Or you have to collect a certain number of things, or not just you have to get to the end. It used to be a lot of games like with Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, Quake. Your goal was to get to the end by whatever means. You just had to get to the other door, and that seems to have kind of disappeared.
Yeah, I have a feeling, especially as we see the rise of mobile gaming, maybe a little bit more play into it. You'll start. Not that you're going to start seeing simpler games, but you'll see some very successful style games like Doom. What this game, Rise of the Triad, looks very similar in that style of a Doom game, or a Duke Nukem game. Aren't they coming out with a new Postal game? Was I reading recently about that?
Yeah, there's going to be a new Postal game.
Now, Postal's open world, but it's a very simple. It's a very early open world game. It's very much like an early Fallout, where yes, it's a little bit more complex, but it's still kind of on rails in some way. And I don't know. Maybe this is just a quick little spurt that developers are into, and more, I guess, more than anything else, that players are into.
What's that game? There's a new game that just came out recently. That's really simple, and it's you just try to survive you try to get to the end or survive the longest. Fall Guys, yeah. If you look at that is that's a very simple game in concept.
It is,
but look how popular it is right now.
Yeah,
people are going crazy over it, and it doesn't have all that complexity. It's just I think that something like that. A lot of people, especially something you can play with your kids. I think that's a lot of what they're missing nowadays. They make games so complex that either it's so complex and as an adult you enjoy it, but you don't have the ability to play it with your kids, or it's so simple so that you can play with your kids that it's just like you're going nuts trying to play it. You're like, this is the stupidest thing. And I think they did a good job with Fall Guys to make a game that is simple but hard, and it makes it to where people actually want to play it without the over complexity.
Well, rather interesting, and we'll see what comes of that, I guess. Boy, we've got a lot of interesting news. But let's, Brian, let's start off with Cyberpunk, because we've got a couple different things about them, and they're kind of the new. Brian, I got to tell you this, Brian. So I mentioned that in the pre-show, I had some friends over for Labor Day, and a guy that I recently met through some political stuff, I invited him and his girlfriend over as well, and we were talking. I didn't realize he's kind of a video game guy, and he's like, "Oh, dude, I can't wait for the next Cyberpunk." I said, "Hey, what do I have for you but an authentic Cyberpunk 2077 glow-in-the-dark IGN cup?" So I was finally able to give. Because we all have like 4 of these cups apiece.
I didn't take any. You got all mine.
So I finally was able to get rid of one of my my Cyberpunk 2077 cups. But I thought, not to go too far off the thing, but I found it interesting that he said, that's kind of the next game I'm looking forward to. And this, he didn't seem like a crazy intense gamer, but enough in tune to say, hey, Cyberpunk is the next thing I'm looking forward to. So thought that was interesting, but a story came out this past week that CD Projekt Red, and the headline's a little misleading because their financial statement is a little misleading, is that they spent $121 million on the development of Cyberpunk. Now, that also includes other unannounced projects. Now, I think it's safe to assume the majority of this money was spent on Cyberpunk, but it could, $20 or $30 million could have been spent on, something else, or back end things to make, the current thing just possible. Whatever.
One thing I just want to mention, for instance, and this is something that was going to come up later, but it is Cyberpunk. Witcher 3 is getting a free next gen upgrade. So they're going to be, so that's one thing that they would be working on as well. Is they're working on a new edition for the console and PC, Witcher 3, that's going to be more in line with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X.
Now, a lot of people were freaking out over this price, Brian. They said, wow, $121 million. But I think it's important to put in perspective that Rockstar spent $265 million in 2013 for GTA 5. So at this rate right now, they have spent half of the development cost of Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, I'm sure that number will probably reach somewhere close to 200 if I had to guess. I don't know. Again, I don't know what it costs to develop a game, but that they're not on par with the development costs. There's probably a lot of other costs.
There's probably a lot of other costs, like if you think of all the radio station stuff and all the
GTA, the voice acting.
GTA, there was a lot of stuff that went out because there's a lot of high profile people that did voice acting.
Well, and Keanu Reeves is in this. And I mean, you talk about high profile things and whatnot. And I'm sure this game, similar to what GTA had, will have some sort of in-game talk show, radio, television thing for background ambiance. If this game, in fact, is going to be the modern day GTA 5, it's going to have those things, right?
Yeah.
That's what sets a game like GTA.
Needs to feel, well, that's the thing. GTA, when you go into the game, you feel like you're kind of there. I mean, it's ridiculous. The environment's ridiculous. It's exaggerated, but there's, you got music on the radio. There's people walking around. Like everything is not a static, like most video games do, a very static thing where maybe something's walking between two objects, and you can, if you sit there long enough, you repeat it. That's something that Rockstar really put a lot of effort into, and we've talked about it before with Red Dead Redemption 2, of making the environment feel alive. And from what I've gathered on them talking about this game as well, I think they're trying to make it feel alive. They want to have it to where it feels like a living city. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of stuff to make that happen. And you have to have, radio stations and music and just ambiance. You see on the pictures that they show, just like in a huge futuristic city, all of the ads and everything playing, there's a lot of stuff going on in this game. That's what I'm really interested to see, is because I really hope they don't cut back, because this is something that most video games, they have their preview, their teaser that they do a couple years before it's released. And then when you get the final game and you look at those two scenes, usually the final release game is cut down and simplified so much that they don't look anything alike. And I'm really hoping with this, they're able to maintain that vision that we see in the pictures and videos and teasers that we've seen of a very alive and very full active city.
And that costs hundreds of millions of dollars to do. Yeah, it's not
to get all those little details in there.
Yeah, it costs a lot, and it's very time consuming, and I think that's why you've seen some delays. Now, this is these financial figures are as of June 30th. So this does not include the last, 2 or 3 months of development, which presumably because they were so delayed, it's possible, because they've delayed it a couple of times, that they may have already spent $80 million, Brian, over the past 2 or 3 months, swelling things up for this launch here. So thought it was rather interesting, but also comparing it to a game that's been out now for 6 years, or 7 years now, which is when did it come? 2013 or 2014? I don't remember. Or maybe it was 2012, 8 years. I don't know. But came out in with that and being GTA 5. So thought that was rather interesting to bring up, and that was only one part of what we had from CD Projekt Red. There's been some controversy though about pricing, Brian, with Cyberpunk.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of people were trying to, because there's kind of this standard price for the next gen where everybody says everything's going to be pretty much $69.99. If it's a new title, that's the new console price. And they said, no, we're not doing that. We're going to be doing it cheaper. We're going to be doing it for, they're going to be doing it for, I think, for $59.99. So that's what they originally promised. The next gen version would be $59.99. So they're going to maintain that. They said that we're not going with the kind of standard list price that they recommend for the next gen consoles of $69.99. So and I think that's what all the pre-orders are too. So they're going to match those pre-orders prices. It's not going to be like, oh, we have a cheaper price for pre-order and then up the price day one of the launch. So if you want to go get it, you can get it for the $59.99, and that's $69.99 for euros. So if you're using the euro, it'll be 10 more.
Yeah, 10 pounds more.
Or euros. Euros.
Which I believe is a pound, no?
No. They're two different things. You can have Green Man there back me up.
Okay, that's fine. I don't know if we've had this conversation on the show before. I think this $69.99 price tag for next generation console games is an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of it seems like that's kind of the standard. I mean, they're trying to up the price. I think it's always been like lately, it seems like 60 something bucks has been these new ones. And then
with tax,
special editions, like 70, 90. Yeah, it gets crazy. But I don't like the fact that they're trying to inch it up, because it's not like game development is getting more expensive. I mean, there are some games are. A lot of the game development technology is becoming cheaper to implement. So, this is, I don't mind them keeping the price the same, because usually there's a lot more features, all this voice acting and things that you didn't have in the old games. But there's a lot of things that don't cost as much to make. So I think it balances out. And they're always going to try to up the price a little bit for any excuse, because they want the price. If they could get the price at 100, they'd put it at 100. It's not about what's best for us.
Well, yes. And the other thing to notice about this is this $59.99 or $69.99 does not include sales tax. Now, I'm not going to speak for, I know VAT is very popular over in Europe, and I'm not sure how that factors into this. But in the US, in most places, you're paying 8.25 or 8.5% sales tax on a $69 game. So you're going to be spending close to $80 for a video game.
Yep. And
let me ask you now. I don't know about you, Brian, but $80 is a lot of damn money.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know me. I'm cheap. I'm cheap. Like I like to wait until something goes on sale.
Being cheap, $80 is a substantial amount of money. You look at what $80 can get you. I would say that even obviously, if you're a level of wealth like Donald Trump or something like that's worth billions of dollars, it's not. But for people making even good money in the United States, $80 is still a lot of money. I mean, it's still a decent chunk of change to be dropping. I tell you what, Brian, you are not going to catch me spending $80 damn on a video game. Very often.
Unless it's amazing. It would have to be amazing. And,
which goes
Cyberpunk, if it were amazing, I'd be like, okay, I'll spend $80 on that, because that's and same thing with GTA. But most games are nowhere near that level of complexity and content. It would have to be. The problem is you're getting games that are mass-produced games. All those sports games that are just reskinned, and new names are put in, and they do a little bit of upgrade to the graphics, and then re-release it as a $60-something title every year for the base version. Plus, then they have tons of microtransactions. At that point, it's like, why does that cost so much money to release that game? Like, why are you having to pay so much money for a game, first of all, that's released yearly? If it's released yearly, they're not putting in nearly the amount of work that this $59.99 game costs. So it shows you that there's definitely inconsistencies in the market. Yeah. These games are not being priced for what it took to make them. They're being priced because, just like they said here, $69.99 is going to be the new standard for all these games, regardless of how good it is. As long as it's put out by a AAA studio, even if it's not really that, the sports games aren't that complex of games as far as they come up with all the technology to build it, and they keep upping that technology, right? But they're not building giant worlds. They're not doing all these other things. They can reuse a lot of the technology of the previous years.
Did you see it was over the weekend. Did you see that somebody found a stadium banner in Madden 20 that said Madden 19? It was in one of the stadiums. One of the stadiums, and people were like, "We knew it. We've known it all along. This is how it's been." And then it was officially seen by everybody that, yes, in fact, this is literally, they just changed the graphics.
They reskin. That's the problem, is they reskin
or add players to the game that don't even play. It's crazy what EA and Madden are doing.
I mean, if they were truly looking to provide a service, if it were about the customer, which it's not. If it were about the customer, they would just have a yearly edition that you pay a yearly an upgrade fee to get you to the newest players.
Okay.
Because they're not spending that much money to remake those games, but people buy them like crazy. I just don't get it.
But hold on, Brian, you just made a BS argument, and you did.
Okay, what?
No,
what is it?
Companies are not making games for their customers. No business is in
they're not
the
making
business.
They're not making it to provide something. Yeah, they're not making it to provide it for the customers. They're doing it to make money.
Yeah, exactly, and exactly. And that's not saying that that they're going to produce a crappy product. Now,
no,
some
but
people,
I'm saying
if
they were pricing it based on what it really cost them to develop it, they would, and they were trying to do a deal for the customer, they would price it like at $30, which is probably what it's worth.
Yeah, now
for those games, those are probably like $30 games.
That I would agree with, but and as much as I would like to say, it's for the customer, I'll tell you what. I'm sure Rockstar was not thinking, we got to make sure the customer. No, they were thinking, we're going to make a badass game and we're going to charge a lot of money for it. And they have I now own 4 copies of said game at $60 a pop, or no, 3 copies rather.
And they're awesome.
Yeah, and they are awesome. But I do think that this $69.99 USD price is, and Conquest Axe said this earlier, it had already scrolled by, this is why people are going indie.
Yeah.
Because you literally can't afford to play new video games. I mean, you're going to be looking at, when you look at the new console launch, you're going to be looking at a $450 to $500 system prior to tax. And then how many $70 games, how many $80 games with tax on top of that? And I get that this happens every year. The Xbox One was expensive. It was a lot of money when it first came out. And yes, the games were still $59, but it eventually gets to a point. I'm not going to spend, what would this be, $77 or something like that with 8.5% sales tax on a video game. $77? Yeah. I mean, you got to be
especially when they're
me.
Packed with microtransactions. That's the other issue that they're not really mentioning with this $69.99 price tag, is that I would say a majority of all of those selling have microtransactions
or some sort of season pass system that's another
or something
$60 or
some other form of income. And that's one thing they actually mention with Cyberpunk is the DLCs. Because that's something that a lot of these games, they'll put out their base one and then they'll offer 5 DLCs, or and sometimes a DLC is, you get this gun in game. which isn't really a DLC. You're buying equipment in the game. But with this one, they're going to be announcing pretty soon their free DLC and expansions for this, for Cyberpunk, because just like Witcher 3, they had these various DLCs and things that they added through the years. And then they also said for the microtransactions will only be on multiplayer content. So any microtransactions inside of Cyberpunk will not be on any of the single player stores content, which is good because that kind of drives me crazy.
Yeah, and again, I've never been somebody that gets like super triggered by microtransactions if in fact it keeps the game, some sort of semblance
but
of
what I
fair
get frustrated
balance.
with is where they have you have to pay a microtransaction to make the game a little bit easier.
Correct.
It's like that should be a setting. What easy, medium, hard, that should be those settings. You shouldn't be paying a fee to be able to make the game easier. That just doesn't make any sense.
Well, good for CD Projekt Red for being from what I can see right now, like the only outcast to say, hey, we're going to keep our games the same price that they've been on consoles in the past, which is $59.99. I assume Witcher 4, whatever the next Witcher game that comes out, will probably have that $69.99 price tag because that's going to be the going rate. And good on them for not. By the way, and also they had to, right? This would have been an unmitigated disaster if they were like,
well, especially when they're selling it, when they labeled it as this price,
and especially when they delayed the game 3 times. Yeah. It would have just been a very, very bad optics. So I'm not sure they had much of a choice.
Speaking of delays, people are saying that based on that, they had an earnings video. They went there, and from what they can tell, based on the information in that video, there will be no more delays. So it should be. It should be released.
I hope not.
On November 19th. So you can take that day off or something.
What kind of day is it? Don't games come out on Tuesdays? Or is it
so?
Fridays?
Let's see. November 19th will be a Thursday.
That's an odd day to release a game.
Okay, let's say you get off work Thursday afternoon, you start playing, take Friday off, you get the whole weekend. You get yourself a.
I'm just saying that's an odd day. I remember.
Yeah.
Growing up, it was.
I kind of like it though. I like it more than Tuesdays. Personally.
Yeah, Tuesdays sucked. Big time.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, you go to work on Monday. You can't really take off Wednesday. You
can. You just take off the whole damn week.
Well, you can, but then it's like, okay, then I'm going to go work Thursday, Friday. With this, if you wanted to, you really only have to take one day, and you got practically 4 days of playing.
It's a good idea.
For a major release like this. Yeah. So I think Thursday is a perfect day. And it's even better than Friday because a lot of times these things don't release or, you don't get it exactly when you want. So, you can get forward, especially we've played games where you don't play for till the next day when they promise they're going to release. Thank you, Call of Duty.
6 hours later.
6 hours later, we're actually finally able to play.
So
I think Thursday works.
Hopped up on Red Bull and Doritos at 3 o'clock in the morning, waiting for the COD
with nothing to play. Yeah, waiting for our servers to come
talking.
back up. But that's where I think a Thursday date is really good because you can go to work, you can skip all the delays and all the possible downtimes, let them figure out that the game actually works or not, and then come back and then decide if you want to take the next day off.
Now, do you think this game will be delayed if that huge asteroid hits the Earth in early November like it's anticipated? Have they come out and made a statement about that?
No, I don't think they've made an announcement of that. But hey,
I would expect one. What is their every company, right, has got like an emergency plan, right? We've got plan A, plan
I'm
B.
sure
We got pre-creator,
their decision.
Post.
What'd be funny is if like their stock price crashes because they're like, well, we're not going to make any contingency plans for the asteroid. People freak out. Fake news goes crazy. There we go.
So yeah, there you go. That's good news. It looks like it is. It looks like it is going to be on track. So,
yep.
Probably the most Cyberpunk news we've had in a week, probably ever. I mean, obviously those videos came out. The
game is going to be released in 2 months, so
yeah.
I mean, it's got to be. I mean, they got to start putting some news out soon because really they've shown a few things. They were supposed to show us a lot 1 year ago, and we haven't really seen anything until recently.
That really pissed me off. I mean, I was so upset. I had a couple drinks on their behalf, and it really frustrated me.
They punished you for it.
No, no kidding. Outside of those really long video things that they revealed, which I won't watch because apparently it's like full on like gameplay, which I'm not interested in. I don't want to see gameplay. I'll see a gameplay trailer, but like 38 minutes of gameplay.
I don't want to see someone just
I don't want to
playing,
watch. We're streaming the show on Twitch and also on D Live and YouTube. I don't really like watching other people play video games that I don't know. At least with Twitch and stuff, it's interactive. I sure as hell don't want to watch a 40-minute video of just game. Nothing. Like that is not sexy for me in any way, shape, or form. I'll just wait until the damn game comes out, which is what I intend.
Plus, a lot of the things, when they record that, probably a lot of the polish isn't there yet, because a lot of that polish happens in the last stages. Like now. They're doing polish right now. And so once you get to that point, I don't like seeing something not polished. Like I want to be amazed when I see it for the first time, just like it was on Red Dead. We had very little, we had no teasers practically for Red Dead that I remember. I don't really remember seeing this detail or anything about it. But when I got into the game and started playing it, I was like, oh, this is amazing. That's what I want to do that's what I'm really hoping for Cyberpunk, is to get in there and just be amazed and be thinking, like, how in the world did they do that? Like, how did they make that work? And on all this, I want to see that. And I don't want to have it to where I'm kind of having it spoon fed to me, because when you go in there and you see it for yourself and you actually can run up to it and look at it, and whatever it is you're looking at that's amazing you, that is a much better of experience than kind of saying, oh, I saw something kind of go by. Was that something cool? I'd rather see it in person. So I'm willing to wait. Like I haven't really watched everything in depth as much as I could have for some of the teasers that they put in, because it's just, I don't want to see those quests yet.
Yeah.
That's it.
I specifically have not. I'm just not interested. So there you go. That is Cyberpunk 2077 out here in a little over 2 months. Very exciting for that. Let's you want to talk about a favorite sponsor of our show, Brian, China, for a couple minutes?
Sure.
This episode of Infection Podcast brought to you by the CCP. And we're going to talk about their great decision this past week to ban the program called Scratch. I'm sure everybody's seen the little orange cat guy that helps kids program. That's Scratch. It's actually made by MIT, and it is a what's that editing in Unreal that you do with the blueprints? It's a
visual scripting.
It's a visual scripting.
Visual scripting language.
Yep, that they teach in part of STEM. It's huge in STEM. It's big with like the whole Raspberry Pi community and getting kids into programming. It's a very simple, but it can be very complex programming thing. China has now banned Scratch, and
the whole web. Yeah, you can't access their website or anything. And according to China, here's what they say. They say a great deal of humiliating, fake, and libelous content about China, including placing Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan in a drop-down list of countries. So what they're mad about is there is a list of countries for drop-downs that you can put in, so people can choose countries. And they had the audacity to put places like Hong Kong and Taiwan into that drop list, which, I mean, in reality, those are independent places that have actually a place in a drop list. But to China, they are unwilling to acknowledge them. So they will not allow people or kids to use the service anymore, because they want them to remove. And this is something that's happening quite a bit. I mean, a lot of the news that we've been talking about has been about China trying to force things upon people. And they do that through purchasing companies. And, they can do it in video games because they own half the video game industry. They can do it at the NBA because they promise them a lot of money if they bend over. They do it with just tons of industries. And here's another one where MIT, in this open source project, refused to go in and change the drop-down list. And so now they're banning them, which is what they do with other organizations. The NBA, they said, if you do not do what we want, you cannot come and play games here, which is for them, billions of dollars or millions of dollars, or how many, they have tons of however much money they're making off of those deals of going to China and playing. And they do the same thing with the video game industry. We see that. That's why Tencent is so big, is because if you want to come play video games here, You have to go through one of our publishers, and you have to do what they say. Blah blah blah. There it goes. You know, they've been doing it over and over again.
Bow down to China, but spit on America. That seems to be the that seems to be the phrase here. But I will say, Brian, this story in particular, to me, has far broader impacts than video games and things like that. This China, which of course is a highly tech-oriented country, presumably had a lot of people using this software. I could be totally off base with this, but I'm going under the assumption that this was pretty widely used and taught and given to kids in that early developmental stage educationally to get into programming, which would in fact foster the next generation of tech leaders in your tech metropolis, aka China. This whole conversation is based on that being a truth. I can't confirm or deny that. I don't know.
Yeah.
This is a huge growth stunner for them. If in fact, kids were actually using this and being taught this in schools and taught to use this, this could have a huge impact on China in the next 10 or 15 or 20 years. If in fact it was as widely used as it is in the United States, which if you go into, Brian, I would make the argument if you went into any elementary or middle school, definitely high school, but any elementary school or middle school in the US that has some sort of computer lab or something like that, a majority of those schools probably have Scratch pre-installed on those computers because it is very widely used. In
China, they had about 3 million users.
That's not that many.
No, it was 5.65% of their registered users were based out of China. Now, that could be bigger because a lot of times they will lie, they use VPNs, or they'll use VPNs and not mark it as China because they're circumventing whatever to get to various places. So there may be some where they're not actually putting that they're on China, but there's at least 3 million users of Scratch.
Yeah, which is very cool software, by the way. So
yeah,
pretty.
Well, this is something, and this is something I've really I brought up the Confucius Institute, which I think is going to become bigger news depending on the election. But this is their goal. China's goal is to change the mindsets of children. That is one of their big goals, and they do it in the schools. And this is one area where they wanted this change so that children, when they just subconsciously, when they look at the list of countries, they don't want them to acknowledge and even think that Taiwan and these places are actual countries.
I'll tell you what, Brian, and then we can move away from this. Stories like this make me very grateful and very thankful for my circumstances, and should make most of the world feel very thankful for the circumstances in the government that they're living under. Because this shit is, and we've got more stories coming up from China later on in this program. We have now had, a story a week, if not more, of services, websites, video games, things, mainstream things getting blocked and or banned in China. And it makes me incredibly thankful that it makes me incredibly thankful that I am not living in that society. And that is literally not a fear I have. I don't go to bed at night thinking, Christ almighty, I hope when I wake up in the morning, YouTube and Twitch and Twitter and Facebook and Reddit and all these websites are still available for me to browse. I know they're going to be there. I would presume in places like China that is a real concern that, hey, this website or this program or this whatever, this video game that I like playing might be gone the next day because the communist government that rules over my country might decide it doesn't fit their programming anymore. I'm very glad that I don't have to worry about that. And I think stories like this, I wish people would use these as perspective builders for themselves and realize, hey, as bad as you think things may be in the US right now, and they are, this is a whole nother level. Like this, you can't put a dollar amount on some of this stuff. This is insanity. This is communism, and it makes me very, very thankful that that is not something I have to worry about. So I'll get off my little high horse there, but hopefully at least somebody listening can say, hey, yeah, he's right.
So there was one other thing I wanted to talk about discussing New World. And there was actually a dev an interview with the dev talking about mechanics and some changes that are going to be happening in the game. And we don't have to, we won't go through it here, but I mainly wanted to put the link in there so if people want to go watch. I think it was Asmongold that did the interview. And so I'll have a link to that in the show notes. So if you want to check it out, because I think the interview is 30 minutes long. So we're not going to cover any of it here, but they have a lot of information about the game and things if people are looking for details of how PvP is going to work, PvE is going to work, and some of the changes coming up in the future. So that's going to be New World. And maybe at some point I'll go through the whole thing and clip out a few things if we want to, but I'll put that in there for people that want to watch it now.
Did you watch any of it?
Not this yet. I just got to it. I mean, I've been out of town and
I was
yesterday.
I was curious because
it came out on the 4th, so I was gone. So I'm going to watch it this week, and then if there's something worth clipping, I'll clip it out of there.
I haven't heard anything because I know that it's the is it an alpha or beta that they're running right now?
I mean, it's pretty much an alpha.
Yeah, it's an alpha. I haven't really heard anything since it first came out. I just I don't know what's going on.
I mean, it's a closed alpha, so there's.
But isn't there an NDA that got lifted?
The NDA is lifted now, and so like I can talk about. I didn't play the second play test that was a non-NDA. Gotcha. I played the first one that was NDA, so I can't really talk. Supposedly, I can't talk about what I saw the first time. I could only talk about the one that I didn't play.
Close your eyes, and you won't ever see it.
I'll just imagine it. Yeah, I'll imagine what it could be like.
Yeah, exactly. Allegedly, it looked like this. And now they also there is another article here as well for New Worlds that they're going to be adding a bunch of content before their next test, which is going to take place in November. So I believe that was one of the things I heard early on was that it's cool. There's really not a whole hell of a lot to do.
Apparently, I mean, I played the beginning intro quest and kind of just got to whatever area. And that was good. But the thing is that at that time, I said they got to create a lot of time sinks and content, because if they're going to compete with something like WoW, which like yesterday, I finally got flying in WoW. It took me forever. That took me a long time. I had to grind and I was willing to put in the work. If they don't have that kind of stuff, people are going to finish whatever, do some PvP and then maybe do some quests and be like, okay, now what? And that's a dangerous thing with an MMO for anyone to sit down and say, okay, what do I do now? Where in the really successful MMOs, people are like, I don't even know where to start. It's like, what should I do first? There's so many things I can do, or so many things I should be doing. What do I first go for? And they need to come up with that. And that's tough to do because they're out of the gate. It's really hard to come up with that much content, but they got to come up with something to where they can stall people long enough, then put out another content patch with a lot of stuff to do. And that's going to be a tough push for them to really accomplish.
Are you playing WoW alone?
Yeah. I have been for this one, because the next expansion is coming out in November.
Gotcha.
And so then I'll actually play a little bit. I'll actually play with a group, but because I didn't take it seriously, in the last expansion, I wasn't at a level where I wanted to compete, and I just didn't have the time to put in. I think now I'll actually put some time in and do a little bit of rating and take it a little bit more seriously and take this expansion. And this expansion is going to be a little bit different. I'm really curious. They're changing some things. So, they've constantly are changing mechanics in this to make it less grindy in certain areas. And so we'll see how this expansion is, because like the grind for flying on this was ridiculous.
Yeah.
The rest of it's easy. That was ridiculous. And they said they're not doing that again. So I think they're constantly putting less grind in, just to make it to where a person like me who doesn't want to spend 5 hours a day in the game can still play and actually compete a little bit.
Excellent. Well, that is New World, and you can check out that interview. The link will be on our website, infectionpodcast.com. Kind of feeding into that prior conversation about China, Brian, we've now seen the first, I believe, the first large anti-China ban for a video game, and that is in the country of India. They have banned PUBG Mobile, as well as about 160 other Tencent-owned related properties and apps in their country. And so it's like it's a counter ban almost. Because China is so strict with stuff and so controlling, they are banning China from doing it. It's like the opposite of controlled censorship. It is still in some way, but their reason for their ban is not because they don't agree with the contents, because they don't want these Chinese essentially back doors on their devices and
they're somewhat at war with them with right now.
They are. Huge trade war.
They're having a trade war at the moment. And so this makes sense. The problem is, I've hinted at this. I don't know how clearly I've said it on this show, but as our relations with China get more and more tense, how are we're seeing it with TikTok. I mean, that's kind of the first one, but how intense is this going to be? How, if we start saying, all right, China, you can't own businesses here. What are we going to do? What's Epic going to do? What all these companies that are majority, what's Budweiser going to do? I mean, like things that we're used to. If we say China, are they going to force sales? I mean, can they? They're going to say you're not going to sell it here, but what are people going to do if all of a sudden they can't buy Budweiser? I mean, it'd be very weird.
It would be a problem.
Yeah,
at least for me, that would be a serious issue. Reading through this list, I misspoke. It's 118 apps, not 166. But you can scroll through this here, and a lot of them are games. But there's some interesting things on here. Cleaner, which is an app, and its description is phone booster, web browser, and fast explorer. Video player, all formats for Android, photo gallery, HD, and editor. Photo and image gallery album. Music player, bass boost, free download HD camera pro selfie, gallery HD, web browser fast, web browser secure, music player, audio player, video player. Lots of these apps that would have this ability to suck a lot of this data out. And yeah, there's 116 on this list, including Marvel Super War, PUBG, a game called Mafia City or something like that. There's some WeChat apps on here as well. This is, and this article notes that PUBG Mobile, its biggest market was India. 24% of PUBG Mobile players were in India. Its largest single country. It is now gone.
But the thing is, how are you going to get these companies to actually stop catering to China? Hit them financially. That's the only way. The reason that they're doing this is because it's financially beneficial for them, because China is such a big client. Here, this is going to actually make them think twice, because all of a sudden 24% of their clientele is gone. I mean, kind of similar to what we're seeing with the Apple and Epic war right now, to where they had a big drop in their player base, of course, on Apple products. But I think here, America, I can see us possibly in the future doing this, having it to where we cannot play certain games that are produced out of China or that are owned directly by China, because of all of the tensions that I think are building up, that for many people, they're not realizing yet, but they're there. There are big tensions between us and China right now that are that I think will come to the surface over time. So That'll be interesting to see how we deal with it. And we have someone on let's see, which chat was it, on YouTube, saying, props to India with which is staunch digital strike. That's the thing, is that they're actually making it happen. A lot of places are scared to do it because of the financial implications.
And to know, earlier last month at this point, they'd already banned TikTok in India. So that's already been gone. So I don't really follow India's politics all that much at all. So I don't want to speak from a place of ignorance, but I do think this is maybe the first domino, Brian, that falls in this anti-China pro, I don't know what you call it, pro free internet thing that starts. That is the counter banning of China. It's kind. it's hard to articulate it because they are in fact banning similar to what China does, but it's for a completely different reason. And I think that's rather interesting. So PUBG Mobile, its largest market, 24% of its total installs were in India, is gone. And according to this article, Tencent's going to lose $14 billion in its market cap because of that. And 117 other apps, plus apps like WeChat and TikTok that had already been banned in India. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the US after November.
Yeah, and I think that's going to make a big decision of whether or not we actually face up to China and square off on this, because it's just going to get worse. It's been getting worse over the years, and we noticed it. We were some of the first people to really notice this problem with H1Z1. I mean, no one else really noticed that China was taking over, and we were one of the first to say, hey, this is all China. This is not us. And now they're catering to China. They're changing the game for China. They're abandoning the U.S. as far as making the game for us. And it wasn't until you really dug into it that you realized, hey, they're actually not developing this game for us anymore. They're developing it for China. And it became very apparent as everything kind of broke down. And once they got kicked out of China, and the whole game fell apart. Yeah. So
very interesting.
So we'll see what happens with that.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a preference? Want to talk a little bit? We mentioned a little bit between Apple and Epic here.
Yeah. What a quick little update on them. What's going on?
All right. So first of all, Epic once again has asked a court to make Apple put Fortnite back into the store, and so we will see if that happens. But I don't know that that's going to happen. So I put a copy of the filing on there if people want to read through it and kind of see what it says. There's a PDF of the request. But this is a battle. I don't know which side to really be on this, because I'm a libertarian, so I like the idea of if a private company has the ability to choose what can and cannot be on their platform. But I don't like things when they control the whole market, having the ability to kind of control everything. So this is kind of a weird one, but we'll see where it goes. Google did the same thing, but that's been pretty low key. It's been more of an Apple fight. Google's asked for the lawsuit to be dismissed against them because they said they're more of an open platform than Apple is. So it's not the same thing. If people wanted to do their own market on an Android phone, they have the ability to do that. And Google's really not limiting that from happening. But if you take a look at, I think my phone is answering.
Yeah, I heard it.
Thank you very much. Yeah. But
good job, Brian. You're being trained very well by the evil G word.
Yes. But that's the thing is, if you take a look, that is true. I think where Apple may be in trouble is the fact that they really locked down the ability to put in these third party markets. Android doesn't. You could put in other marketplaces and install and unlock without really rooting your phone or unlocking your phone. On an Apple, you can't do that. So I think that maybe in the long run, that's probably why they're putting more attention on Apple, because that could come back to bite them. The fact that they locked down their platform for so much and tried to prevent them from people from being able to install third party and get around this, because they're truly acting like they own the whole thing. So we will see. No real big news. I mean, it's just them asking to reverse it, but that is happening in the news right now.
Excellent. Let's do we have a game giveaway, Brian?
Yeah, I'll get it up here in just a second.
Okay. So while we're getting that ready, there's a game that we haven't really talked about in quite some time. We first saw it in March of 2017. That was a game by the name of Scavengers. And they've been working on a couple of things, and they've got a new official gameplay trailer out now. And so we'll watch this gameplay trailer for Scavengers, and then we'll talk about it right after this.
When the asteroid struck, it remade our world. Your mission today shall not be easy. You won't go alone to the surface. In fact, I'm sending many teams. Collect the data I need. Take it if you must. Protect it if you can. The storms that plague this world are dangerously cold. Warmth will be essential to your survival.
Another day in paradise.
I've located several sites that warrant investigation. You'll need food to keep your stamina up. Arm yourself and scavenge whatever supplies you may find.
That's what I'm talking about.
Looks like we've got competition.
Let's do that again sometime.
And I need to set the record straight here, Brian. I was confused at what game this was. This is the new midwinter entertainment game, Scavengers, not that other snow scavenger game.
Scavengers that we saw, yeah.
Yes, not that.
It has
not
very
that
much
other.
of an Apex Legends type of a feel as far as the art
it
style
does.
and the movement and everything else. So that they put out a gameplay trailer for that. So if you're interested, and I'm sure we'll see more here coming up. If you want to, we'll go and do the game giveaway here really quick.
Sure.
So this will be exclamation point giveaway in chat, 60 points. You must be a follower at least, which of course gives you some points if you're short a little bit. And then I'm going to be giving away a copy of Strange Brigade. It's currently $49.99 on Steam. It is has very positive ratings for recent and all reviews. It's an adventure action co-op zombies multiplayer game. So if you're interested in this, it's currently $49.99 on Steam, but we'll be giving away a copy of it and giving away here in about an hour.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Hopefully you'll stay tuned for that throughout the rest of the program.
Yes.
Where do we want to go from here, Brian? Talk about some Last Oasis or something?
Yeah, let's go and talk about Last Oasis a little bit. First of all, let's talk about the numbers before we talk about the content.
Okay.
This is something that they didn't have a huge launch, right? I mean, it wasn't. They kind of had a stutter step in their launch. The numbers aren't incredibly high. I think it's a fun game. Depending on the late game content. I didn't get to the late game to really see how that process. And we didn't do a lot of PvP and all that. But as far as a basic survival game and some of those concepts, works very well. But here they said, I'm going to read some quotes here really quick. So we launched the game with a unique, fresh setting, having great atmosphere and in a pretty polished state, especially in the early game. However, we had and still have lack of content, number of serious gameplay issues, in particular affecting late game, which I was just talking about, and lack of customization options. Considering all of that, it is absolutely expected for people to give it a try, play for some time, and then leave while checking on the game state from time to time. Not saying we didn't make mistakes after release, but mistakes are also something to be expected and part of EA title development. The only thing we can really do about this...
Hold on a second. That is bullshit.
Okay.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, mistakes shouldn't be a part of it.
No, mistakes should be part of it, and mistakes will happen.
But I mean, mistakes will happen. But your goal is to not have mistakes, and your goal is to continually provide content. Because people, that's the problem with EA now, and we've seen this because we have been in EA since it really started.
Not EA, early access.
Early access games, yes. For us, we've been at the beginning of that early access push and seen where for you to have an early access game that's really successful, you have to put out content on a regular basis. And you have to create enough grind and stuff to keep people busy between content releases. That's really hard to do. So with these, when you don't put out content and you don't have enough of a grind to really stretch them out to where they don't hit that point where they're sitting around and saying, now what? Just like I was talking about before, you run into problems with like this.
Yeah.
So,
that really frustrates me that they say that.
No, I mean,
that's a big slap in the face.
That's why you need to create a huge amount of content before you push out to early access. Early access should be more about bugs, and you won't have all the content in there, but you need to have a decent amount of content if you're going to open up the game for people to play.
Isn't that a huge slap in the face, though, to their supporters?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on. I mean, they have a decent amount in there. I don't know what they're expecting to have in there, but I think the late game stuff is really what's missing, because the early game stuff is there, and they're developing it from like beginning to end, is what it sounds like, which I don't know is necessarily best, because then, just like in Conan, we ran into this in Conan Exiles, and they did a good job of fixing it, right? But you start out, and then you hit a point. We got to the end, we built everything, and we're like, okay, well, now there's nothing to do, and it made it really tough. We waited for them to put out content, then we played it again. It's like, okay, cool, they have some stuff now. I think these guys are running into that same problem. They're going to have to push out some content. Even though their numbers are down, just ignore that part. Push out content to where then people will come back, just like they did with Conan. And I think this is an excellent one that they could kind of follow that Conan model as well, of cater to people that want to have really cool, unique walkers, or come up with variations of it. Different things you can have if you want to cater to the role playing community. They're going to have to find where they're wanting to go and kind of start catering to that community, and then pushing out content for that, because it's really tough to just do content for everything. You have to kind of pick, who are you aiming for? Are you aiming for PvP? Are you aiming for role players? And push out that content and get it done. So here, I'm just going to finish up there what they say really quick. The only thing that we can really do about this is to continue development, fixing the issues, adding more content and ways to play. It is understandable that for many people, the current numbers seem worrying, but the more important part for the game to keep improving and be fun to play, the more important part is for the game to keep improving and be fun to play. When we fix all the major issues, getting the numbers back won't be difficult. So that's just their statement on that. But they did also announce some new content. We did tease it last week. I think we showed a little video showing some of it, but the exoskeleton has now been released. And so that is in there. I'm just going to go over a couple of the changes. There is a video, if you want to play that really quick. I think it's pretty much just music. So I don't know if you want to play it with the music and let's watch it, or do you?
Yeah, it's short. We'll just
we'll take a quick,
we'll take a quick look at it, and we'll discuss right after this. A little bit of a Halo vibe there, Brian, with the the guy jumping down with the exoskeleton. A little bit of like a mech vibe.
The thing I also think, I kind of got the vibe of some things about Ark though too. Just thinking about the game, I think if they kind of look at Ark and how that's accomplished, these walkers and the time and the work that it takes to kind of build that up could be the equivalent somewhat of a dinosaur, right?
True.
And then you have these exosuits. Make it a grind to be able to actually get that. Make that something that is really an important item. And that kind of works like that high-end gear that you get in Ark. Like they can almost kind of mirror some of those things, not enough to where people are like, oh, you're just copying it. But those concepts work. All those things were put into Ark to kind of make a grind that would keep people playing and give people a reason to log in and try to do stuff. Yeah. So I think with this, they could do something very similar, and make that happen as well. And like this suit should take you a week or two maybe to get it, actually get it, the materials, and learn, whatever it takes to learn and to get it. It shouldn't be something that, oh, I've got, this many sticks and whatever else, I can build it. Like they need to stretch that out and make that a goal, not just something you pretty much get when you play the game.
I would agree.
So that's the exoskeleton. I think they're going to have, that plus whatever else they're doing, crafting. I think that this game will have some sort of a player base. I don't think it's going to fizzle out, because I think the pieces are there, the concept is there, that could be successful. I just don't know. It may be an Atlas type of situation where, for these servers to work, you have to have so many players that are playing on such a regular basis. That's going to be hard to maintain. It's not like Rust. Rust, it's a weird mix between Ark and Rust, this game, because Rust relies a lot on that PvP and people logging in regularly and creating that conflict between groups that's really hard to force. Rust seemed to just kind of go that way naturally. And, they don't have to do a lot of things to really make that happen. Players just play it that way. They're going to have to figure out how do we get our players, how do we get them to want to do PvP like they do in Rust? And how do we want them to, put in the time and build things like they do in Ark, and get those the equivalent of dinosaurs, the mounts.
Yeah.
So they have an interesting thing, but I think there's enough pieces, enough examples of other people doing it successfully that if they kind of follow those, the ones that are successful, I think this could actually work. But of course, they could drop the ball and everything could go to hell in a handbasket pretty quick if they make a few poor decisions as well. So we'll see.
And we'll have their current player numbers coming up here towards the end of the program. So stay tuned for that.
Yep. All right. Do you want to do Rust here really quick? Because there's a couple things with Rust. There's a video that shows some things about boats, but it's purely music along with showing some stuff. So I wasn't sure if you wanted to show that right now, or if we want to start with Shadow Frax and then maybe discuss it with the video in the background.
Let's do that. Let's start with our good buddy Shadow Frax. We'll take a look at his weekly Rust update video, and then we'll look at some of their sort of B-roll boat footage right after this.
Sounds good.
Greetings, survivors and friends. Shadowfrax here, beaming you in the latest news from the world of Rustware this week. Because the monthly forced wipe just occurred, we're going to start off with a roundup. But there's also some good news on the optimization front. So let's get stuck in. Most of what we now have I've already covered, but to recap, a new craftable aquatic vessel is here, the kayak. It's fairly cheap and cheerful, and also requires the possession of a paddle to use. 1 or 2 players can power it, with 2 being faster, and you can use weapons from either seat. Paddle forwards with the left and right mouse buttons, or A and D, and paddle backwards when also holding S. Not only that, but the paddle can be used on land as a melee or thrown weapon. It would be great if we could use the shovel in to dig stuff up too. Fishing villages are here as of this patch too. 3 will spawn on a default map size, that's 2 small ones and a big one. You'll find them on Happis Island too, and the vendors seem to only like reggae music. They're safe zones, which means no aggressive shenanigans, and this is the only place you'll now be able to get motorboats and rahibs, as they won't spawn in the wild anymore. They cost 200 and 400 scrap respectively, and the shop also sells kayaks, paddles and scuba gear. Apparently we'll see more NPC villages like this in future, probably meaning that horses will be behind a scrap wall too. Maybe cars as well, who knows. Also, a mission system is being worked on to allow players to get items and BPs without just farming scrap, and mission providers will likely be found at these monuments. Oh, how we all love fetch quests, right? Please tell me how dead Rust is today on a scale of 1 to respawn down below. Electrical systems now, and we have a new item, the storage monitor. I showed this briefly last week, but it now has a model. You can attach it to either a tool cupboard or a large wooden box, and it can be paired with your Rust Plus app to remotely show your upkeep and keep tabs on what's in each container you have one attached to. You can buy these at the compound for 75 scrap, they can be researched for 75 scrap too, and crafted at a level 1 workbench for 3 HQ and 1 tech trash each. They require a small amount of power to work, but can also be hooked up to alarms, etc., as they will send out a pulse whenever an item is added or removed. In other electrical changes, door controllers now have a pass-through, searchlights are now electrical items, and reactive targets can be powered, although this is optional. They have 3 outputs and an input. That's power in, power out, lower, and reset. Vehicle cockpits now have windscreens, which grant additional protection. Workbenches can finally be picked up, and Tier 2 and Tier 3 models have had their health reduced by 250 each to compensate, although this feature will be monitored to see how it affects gameplay, so it's still definitely subject to change. A number of quality of life improvements were made to farming. Electric heaters will add warmth to nearby planters to make farming in the cold more viable. The right mouse button now accesses the clone option when looking at a clonable plant. The water flow system splits evenly between multiple outputs now, and the max water range has been extended, meaning longer chains of water entities will work. Also, powered water purifiers will automatically shut off when their output containers become full. In optimization now, and Rust has been upgraded to Unity 2019 LTS, which means long-term support. There's a write-up on the dev blog about what this means. More entity pooling was added for farming electrical and fluid entities, which should help reduce frame rate drops and greatly improve server performance for large farms. Gib pooling was added for everything, which basically means all the little bits that things break into when they're destroyed are recycled into a common pool instead of being created and destroyed each time. Building part gibs are also now using simple shapes to improve performance, and the system is twice as fast at spawning objects and uses less memory, which should prevent frame drops, especially when raiding, which is when you really don't want them. Other optimizations include flares being completely overhauled, with a lot of the work now being handled by the shader instead of your CPU, and an LOD system was added for all of them. This should add a few FPS for most people in most situations. Also, as a bonus, all light sources will now illuminate the minigame markers on ores at night, not just the miner helmet. Static animators now have an LOD component too, and a lot of useless animator components were removed, meaning the active animator count has now been reduced by about 200, which can increase performance by a few FPS in some situations. And a small performance benefit was gained by fixing Unity's text rendering system not now having to manage text that wasn't being displayed. Every little helps. In addition to this, many small fixes were made and a number of quality of life improvements, including painted signs now appearing in demos, as long as they were already painted when the demo started recording. Text muting a player will now mute their voice as well. Drinking tea now also hydrates. Teammates should now be able to mount newly purchased vehicles in a safe zone, and a new console command, world.renderMap, will render a high-res PNG of the map that you're currently on, although I don't think it's live just yet on staging. At least I haven't been able to get it to work, but it will be jolly handy when it does. And now to works in progress, where time is still being put into the voice props branch, whatever that turns out to be, and the new weather system that's being worked on looks like it'll include lightning and storms. Shocking. Let me know in the comments below what you think to this month's patch.
Amazing.
And whether you've noticed any performance boosts yet. Leave me a like and sub to the channel if you enjoyed, and join me on Twitch for weekly streams, and Twitter, Facebook, Discord, and my Steam group to stay updated on my latest content. Links are down below. Thank you to my patrons for their continued support, and I shall catch you all soon. But in the meantime, keep calm and stay rusty. Cheerio.
All right, a little cheerio to our good friend Shadowfrax as well. Boy,
Yes.
lightning and storms. I mean, you know, there's a lot of great features in Rust, Brian, but, you know, gyrocopters and rocket launchers and bases, but lightning.
Yes, finally weather. There you go.
I'm very excited
Real
about
weather.
that.
Do you want to play that other one here just for a minute, and then I will talk a little bit about what we're seeing?
Yeah.
So this is the boat vendor update.
Okay. So we're going to just look at this and we're going to talk, is I think the plan. So what, oops, let's see, why is this not working? There it is. All right. What are we looking at here?
Okay, so I'm just going to talk about some first things they've added. You know, they have kayaks and paddles are two new craftable items that you can make. And I think they're really trying to go for some, you know, more of a ocean combat system here. And also they had like the boogie board from the Sunburn DLC that they did a couple weeks ago. And this kayak's going to be a lot like that. Also, they have you're seeing now a fishing village. And so here, there are 3 fishing villages around the map in various different sizes. Boats are no longer procedurally spawned along the beach and ocean. Instead, they could be purchased from these boat vendors. So 200 for a rowboat, 400 for a rahib. And fishing villages are safe zones, and hostile actions result in a swift death. If you're unable to afford a rowboat, you can opt to purchase the blueprint for a kayak and paddle, which then you can craft yourself. You can also purchase each piece of scuba gear at the fishing village. So that's mainly what you're seeing here, and they're really trying to encourage people getting boats and having some PvP combat in them. So other than that, I think the storage monitor and some other things. There's a number of things that were mentioned before in this patch.
Gotcha.
But I think the boats are the main thing there. You can buy boats and go to the villages and get them, and they're not going to be spawned along the beaches anymore. So
yeah, I don't know. Water combat just never seems to work. At least I've never really seen it. I've never been, even in a game like, now obviously there are certain games where water combat is the only combat, aka Black Wake, Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
But in any game that has any sort of emphasis on land PvP or air PvP, water PvP just does not seem to work. And I don't know if it's because it's a pain to do, if it's not, or I just don't think it works very well, Brian. It's just not, it's hard.
There's a lot of logistical issues with,
of
with
course.
water too.
I mean, like, shooting from a car is hard enough. Now you're shooting from water. And
Well,
it's just,
and a lot of times people don't want to, here's reasoning for not using water in a game, as far as for combat. First of all, your frame rate tanks when you have nice looking water, and they've done a good job in Rust. They've really taken a lot of work to try to optimize that. But for new games coming out, generally it will tank your frame rate. And so if you have anybody with a low end machine and then all your combat's on water, and then you're having a fast moving boat or something, and then you have bullets and people moving, every possible ingredient to have a disaster is now being placed in that recipe, right? So that's generally why you don't see a lot of boat combat. And now as technology is catching up and you're starting to see water put into things that are less resource intensive, I think we're going to start seeing more boat content, type of combat and things happening on water. We're starting to see Sea of Thieves did a good job of optimizing their water. Even Atlas did a decent job the thing was almost all ocean. And I know in the current Fortnite, they did a lot of work on the water. I think as you see, like with Unreal Engine 5, I think they'll really optimize water in that. You'll probably see a lot of things with a lot of water, but up until this point, it's not been worth it. I mean, the performance and the amount of work to get it to work well doesn't work for an indie studio usually. So you only see the AAA studios and bigger studios with maybe a game that's already out where they have the funding to really try to tackle that. But once it gets out in the more common, you might see people making games on water that actually work.
Now here's the thing though, Brian, there are games on water that work, and Rust has got a fine boat system, but I don't know of any big pirate battles
they haven't
going
optimized
on.
their water until recently.
But
it's been
not even
this year that they really optimized it.
I don't think that's the problem. I think they're trying to force, I'm using the word force lightly, but they're trying to force a style of combat that is just what's sexy about fighting on a boat? Your base is on land where all your crap is. Why would you want to go out to sea and shoot at another random boat? There's no loot to be gained for realistically, it's just passenger loot. And then of course the games where you do have that stuff is Sea of Thieves, Black Wake, and then you could make the argument Atlas. But if the storage is in bases, why would you spend your resources as a player building a boat, getting people on a boat to do what? To kill a couple of people that have sticks and penises? Because that's like the first two items that you get in the game. Like, what do you? So it's just not a good. It's just not good PvP. There's no benefits. So it kind of sucks.
I think the possibility is there though. So let me set up an idea for a game for you that I think would be really successful in what you're explaining. What you're explaining, saying doesn't work, I think could work. Waterworld, the movie Waterworld, right? Yeah. Where you're not seen Waterworld? No. Okay. So it's based on the concept.
You seem so surprised.
It's a bit. Kevin Costner's in it. I mean, it's a pretty big.
I don't even know who that is, but okay.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we'll just move on. Postman, nothing. Okay, all right.
Don't know what that is.
And so it's based on this world where the water levels have risen, and so everybody's kind of forced onto the ocean. Like there's not really the people aren't living on land, and so there are some places where there's kind of like a little bit of land or something that people are living on, right? Or going to, and it's like a little town. But for the most part, it's people on boats, and it's like a post-apocalyptic situation in the water. If you created a situation where, like that raft game, where it's a very simplified version of that, where you're sitting there and gathering resources, I think you could create almost a PvP style combat that would work very well, because in oceans, with games, you could almost auto generate everything, because the ocean, you could place like they do in Atlas. Okay, there's going to be an island over here. You don't have to have a giant map that is really like, here is your map with the island. All you have to do is have coordinates and say, all right, at this coordinate is an island, and then randomly generate objects and things that are floating in the water. Have people, you could create a huge map that's really not that big. It's just, you're kind of instancing people to where, until they get within a certain distance from each other, they can't see each other. You create a virtual type of a map where it's really based on distances from each other. And you could create this huge open world that just seemed like a giant map, to where people are going and either they're working together or they're fighting against each other, and trying to steal their resources. It could be a really interesting game if done right. And that would be 100% of water, which is actually much easier to design a level on, because you don't have to worry about people, populating and making everything look real on this giant map, because the ocean pretty much looks the same 99% of the time.
But see I don't think that's the issue, Brian, is that games, and Ark, I think, is a great example of it. The risk versus reward in water combat is not great enough.
You can't have it. You can't have them syncing all these things, because then you're out. You want it to where people have something. That's the downside. How do you create that where you can go and steal from somebody, but then not make them totally start over with nothing?
And X Bravo says, there's oil rigs that's worth fighting for, and I get that, but
you could create things. I think the concept is there. It could be a very interesting game that hasn't really. The H2O game kind of tried, but it wasn't really a hide and hold out. Wasn't really. It was more about, there was all islands. There was all these islands, and you didn't really get to the boat part. But I think that a company could make a really awesome ocean type of a game if they made it more of like a survival game and just didn't have it be fast-paced boats and all this combat. You'd have to have it to where like there's a little bit of setup and you don't lose everything.
Yeah.
And not make it like Atlas where everything sinks.
Yeah. Sorry for going on a little bit of a rant there. It's always frustrating when I see these water trailers and it looks so cool, and then it's like, how many times have you ever been in any sort of boat combat? And my answer is, unless I'm playing a pirate game, literally never. So
yeah,
I appreciate.
I think it's an untapped. We wanted that with Ark. Remember when we were Ark? We were like, they were like, we're going to make the water a big part of the game. Well, no, they didn't. They just released Atlas, which was a flop.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, which was just crappy Ark.
I think now that the technology has caught up, I think that it's totally open to where you could have something like that happen.
Yeah.
And it might work. But I think up until the last year or two, I don't think the technology's been there for a regular studio, not Microsoft, which, made Sea of Thieves, to be able to do this. Because you remember what they had to do to the water to make it look like it does. They pretty much fixed the water when they made Sea of Thieves.
They built an entire engine for water, essentially.
That's what I'm saying. A small studio could not have done that. But I think the technology is now, and the resources are out there for a company just to buy the water, and then tune it and improve it, just like a lot of places do with a lot of other resources. So I think we'll start seeing more water games that actually work. But I think it's gonna be difficult. I think you're gonna almost have to create its own kind of genre of game just to do it. Just like we have had BRs, you're gonna have to have something that plays in a way that works well with water. And like people are saying, you could have it to where oil is kind of the end game, so you can have motors and have engines and have faster boats. You could have a whole tier system. It could be cool, but I just don't think we've seen anybody try to tackle it in a real way yet. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, there you have it. Little rant here on Infection about water. Yeah, I'm just looking. I think water is a very untapped thing in all of these games. Yeah. They all have it.
We've done so much of the other. It's nice when something else comes along and say, oh, there could be a cool genre, because then you could have it to where you could have underwater. There's so much stuff you could do with that we've not played, we've not experienced, and that's a world that we haven't really gone in. Atlas had some underwater stuff that was kind of cool, but there's not been one where you just truly are like, wow, this is amazing. This is mind blowing. It's still not there yet.
Agreed. All right. let's talk about a game that doesn't have hardly any water at all, and that is Conan Exiles. And we've got a couple of things here, Brian. We had a patch that came out on the 2nd, which was about a week ago or so. And this was a PC patch, and it was nothing too crazy in this. Fixed a number of client and server crashes, and fixed a number of crashes upon joining a server via friends list. They fixed an exploit regarding God bubbles. So I don't know if that is like, if they're talking about a bubble around a certain player, or some sort of like something in the water with physical bubbles. I'm not sure how that was working. And then they did a couple of UI and text fixes as well, about 4 or 5 of those. So a pretty small patch with that. But in conjunction with that, Brian, we got a Steam announcement post last Thursday that said, "Be prepared. Dark clouds on the horizon, whispers of chaos and a demonic storm. And in the vortex, the Black Tower seeks to dominate all life. Be prepared." With a little GIF of something loading that says "Be prepared." Now, as of this show,
I think it's tomorrow that it's being released. If I remember seeing a day, I thought it was the 9th.
Yeah.
That this is going to be released.
So always a day off on the show, but this is their little graphic. Be prepared. I presume this is going to be some sort of hellish demonic world boss by the sounds of it. That's kind of what their little riddle indicates.
Yeah. One thing, remember that they were recently bought by Tencent, if I remember correctly. I think Tencent purchased them within the last month or two. So I'm assuming that some funding got dumped into them with that deal to where they were able to push out some big content with this. So I'm assuming this is a result of them getting big funding and doing a content push.
Maybe it's a big tornado, Brian.
Yeah,
and
you would think that there
vortex, the Black Tower seeks to dominate our life. A huge tornado would fit the time period perfectly.
Well, and also, something that, because a lot of the problem with these type of games, people build up these giant bases, and they tried to come up with those ways with avatars. Were they called avatars, if I remember correctly?
Oh no, they were called the those big damn.
They were giant creatures,
monument things that would just come and stomp all your crap.
Yeah, so you were supposed to have that. And I don't think that was really successful because they disabled them for a while, and I thought they re-enabled them.
Because they were broken as hell.
Yeah, so I think maybe this is a way, because you need to have it to where people's bases kind of get destroyed somewhat, so that they put the time in and work and build them back up for gameplay. So I'm wondering if this is going to be something like that maybe goes through and just destroys or damages large areas on the map, so people go in and start having to rebuild. So we'll see.
So. Yeah, that could be pretty neat. We are prepared, and hopefully by this time next week we'll have an update on what is coming from our.
And if it's something worth playing, we could always throw up a private server and give it a shot and see some of the new content.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All right, let's go ahead and let's talk about. We can do ROE here really quick.
Okay.
First of all, ROE is a BR type of a game out of, I think, is it Japan maybe or Korea?
Is it?
No, I don't think I thought it was either Japan or Korea. But they first of all are unlocking another character called Mansi. They've been doing these various styled characters lately. They did the one that was more of a Russian one last week, a Russian military. They had some look like US special forces and military. And now this is one called Deceiver Style A and Deceiver Style B. So it's a female, kind of in a Laura Croft style outfit. Also, they adjusted the reload animation and optimized the reload sound effects for various weapons. They're putting in for their special map rotation or game mode. Each Monday and Wednesday, Europa Islands LTM has been replaced with Grand Adventure. The DirectX 12 client will now automatically enable DirectX 12 on the GTX 1070 NVIDIA graphics cards. And then they did a couple bug fixes here as well. So that is Ring of Elysium.
All right. And I see we've got an update here from Jaws of Extinction.
Okay, so PH is actually clarifying. It is published by Tencent. So it's Aurora Studio. So it is China. You're right. Another one owned by China. It's the end of the world.
I mean, it wasn't a hard guess. It's like
I was hoping that I was hoping there was a BR game that was not opened by China, but I mean,
again, it wasn't a random guess. It's not. I mean, It's not the most complicated thing in the world.
Yeah.
Jaws of Extinction. These guys are terrible with publishing their patches. So we've got a paste bin article.
They pretty much mass paste inside their Discord, and I have to go in and clean it up a bunch. I don't know, but I have to go through and like remove all of because they put an emoji or whatever at the beginning of every single line. So then when you copy it out, it's like : smile : and then it's all formatted weird, and they do them in multiple posts. So I have to go through and remove all the timestamps and everything else from. It's just a pain in the butt, but they do this, and so I put it in a paste bin for everybody to make it easier to read.
Gotcha. What do we need to go through in here? I'm a little
all right. So let's go and I'll go through a couple of things. First of all, they upgraded the engine version from 4.24 to 4.25. So usually with that, you'll see optimizations, some new features included. So they're currently on the latest now. They implemented the Wise sound system, which is used by a lot of large studios, and I think it gives them a much better way of getting depth and sound, and playing it more efficiently. So you will see that in there as well. And then they did fix an issue where that reduces the amount of corruptions that you can get when you're saving your game. They did a lot of optimizations in this. They've been it says optimize textures with higher compression and lower resolution. So the problem is when you're going through here and you're importing a bunch of images and textures for your game, a lot of times you're importing them at the highest setting, and it just takes up a ton of space, and then rendering them gets more difficult. So they went through and made them less clear, but it makes the game files a lot smaller and will load faster, use up less video memory. The world tile size has been increased by 3 to reduce load and unload performance spikes. They said that spikes will still occur, but less often. They've changed the leaf foliage to a low poly version, which they should have done from the very beginning, because that's one of your biggest, like Ocean. I said Ocean is a huge impact on performance. When you're on the land, your trees and grass and all that is your biggest performance impact. And so it sounds like they're going through and really, first of all, reducing density of some foliage around the places that are getting frames just dropping, and then lowering the quality of those foliage. They improved optimizations to their skylight system, and then been working on their character controller and removing a lot of redundant things that they put in there. Other than that, these guys do a lot in their patch notes. They're doing things constantly, but they've added a lot of sound effects, done a lot of fixes for various items. So I don't know at what point they still don't have multiplayer, if I remember correctly, in this. And so that's the big thing holding me back. Until they get multiplayer, I don't see a point in really going in and playing in this style of a game, because it's not a story. I mean, there are quests that kind of take you along, but it's not like I'm going to go and then there's a story and characters and everything I'm interacting with. This, in the long run, is a multiplayer open world survival game. So I think until they get to the point where they really have multiplayer in here, I don't necessarily say it's a recommended game to play. It has a lot of promise, but when you went in there, you saw the performance, the CPU and frame rates, everything was ridiculous, because they had so many objects that weren't optimized.
They are still unlisted on Steam, because if you try searching for it still doesn't show up. So I mean, at least they're giving us that, but
respect for them, because that's something that they don't feel that it's ready, and they know that it takes a long time to make this, but they have released it for people who want to go in and play and try it out, but they don't even recommend for people. So, I mean, I don't feel bad saying I recommend people don't go get it yet, because they don't even recommend people to go get it yet. I'm not bashing the game. They're putting in the work to get this done, but it's going to be a while till they get multiplayer. I'm not going to make a judgment, because there's a lot of things. There's a possibility of a lot of things that they will have to change to make multiplayer work. And sure, they've got all these objects and all these things in there right now. Wait till you replicate that and you make it multiplayer. It may tank the game, and they may have to kind of start over on a lot of things. So we'll see.
Yes, and I do want to thank our friend Valp, who hit us up with a resubscription a couple of minutes ago on the program. I think we missed over that. So Valp, thank you very much. It is greatly appreciated. We talked about them a little bit earlier, Brian. Let's talk about Atlas. They had a quick update here. Nothing too crazy with this. Just a fix and balance pass. So on the combat side, the shield bash can no longer be used while in the air. So you have to be standing on 2 legs for that. A bug fix: soft spots feet now, and that's FEAT, now only affects 2-handed mace, and brass knuckles no longer affects shield bash damage. So that's on the combat side. On the construction side, structures can no longer be built on tables. Grills, crock
Imagine what people are
pots,
doing with that.
water pipes, painting flags, and buoys can no longer be built in free ports or on land claimed by another company. On the crafting side, cloth armor and simple beds may now be crafted at the loom. And I think we've gone over some of this stuff in the past, because some of this stuff is seeming...
It's some things they discussed that they were going to be doing.
I think we discussed most of this stuff. And they mentioned that the cows are now rideable on the saddle. I think we pretty much covered some of this stuff last week, but it wasn't officially in. But it is now in. They patched last Tuesday night is when this patch went live. So that is a hot fix, or excuse me, not a hot fix, a balance and some bug fixes for Atlas.
Very good. All right, let's talk really quick about Apex Legends. And they did their Season 6 armor update. And on here, first of all, it says first, all armor became Evo armor. And then second, all armor values were reduced by 25 hit points. So I guess they were feeling that the armor was too powerful. And so they went through and kind of redid them all. It says, after letting the change simmer for a few weeks, we've analyzed some data and collected player feedback enough to make a decision. We're going to revert the armor values to pre-Season 6 values. This change is happening today across all platforms. And this was as of this past week on Thursday is when they did this. So that they found that these changes that they had made didn't work, and so they reverted them. Also, they said this from the start on this game, in the development, one of their core pillars that was to getting the drop on someone should give those players a significant advantage, and they aim to promote strategy and battlefield positioning and map control. So when these tactics were executed well, but a team still outplayed you because of a mechanic skill, this felt bad. In seasons 1 through 5, we felt the balance was achieved pretty well. However, with the introduction of Evo armor changes, we saw that players were achieving red armor more often, and more players were fighting at 225 total health. And this started to swing the battles more than we liked, and good players were able to outplay teams more consistently, even if the enemy had worked for a much better position. By lowering the armor values, we felt we had adjusted for the red armor availability more than anything else. So that's kind of the reasoning for them making these changes, because they want this to be about positioning, not about getting the best and most armor. You know, they want you to outplay each other, not just to run around and gather enough things to where you're more powerful, and that being the deciding factor. So other than that, they have a bunch of fixes, bug fixes in here, and slight adjustments, but mostly just a bunch of fixes for this patch.
Cool. Yep, I haven't played Apex in probably over a year at this point.
My nephew was playing it a lot, but he hasn't been playing it lately. So
I wonder why.
I think he's been playing like war zones and stuff like that instead. So
good stuff.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk. Let's talk really quick. Or do you have a preference?
Yeah, I was gonna say let's do a little SCUM here, because we do have a video for them. At least I thought we had a video. Yes, there is a video. But before the video, we've got a patch here. This is their 2-year anniversary update video. The video is kind of long.
It kind of shows the difference between what they've done from 2018 to 2020.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this video, and then we will kind of reminisce on some things from SCUM, maybe not being able to log in and some fun stuff like that right after this.
I'm going to talk a little bit for our audio listeners. So first of all, they said during this, they've improved the driving mechanics. That has been one thing they've really pushed. They said they've added 20 new weapons to the game and 15 new attachments for those weapons. They've added in archery. And then they've reworked the shooting mechanics.
Yeah, and the shooting mechanics are pretty good. They also added cargo drops, which you can see here, these large cargo containers, the fortification and lock system that they've put a lot of work into as well as, of course, lockpicking that goes along with that, which is a pretty popular mechanic. And then, of course, everybody's favorite, base building, and you can see some monstrosity of a design there, as well as traps and mines for different doors and bases and whatnot. And a lot of work here on redoing the inventory as well. They also worked here on item degradation, which is how it falls apart over time. Same thing for items as well. You can see here apples
Fruit
and
spoiling,
fruits.
yeah.
Slowly turning darker. They've added female characters, which actually I don't even remember them adding those. Hair and beards, which Brian and I know very well. Very important things, as well as some in-game tutorials for different things, which are helping people get things started. Plus 56 Steam achievements. Some new lighting systems as well on top of that. You can see those in full effect here.
Yeah, they added 20 new POIs in this, and that was one thing before. They really just had a very limited place where mechs walked around, military base, and so they're going through some of those different ones they've added. Pretty decent. I mean, if you look at the size of that city, that was huge. They had the quarry in here, and a mine, and then an observatory.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, what is this?
Disco hall. Wow.
I've never seen
No,
that.
this wasn't in there. Yeah.
I had no idea.
They added some castles. Yeah, I mean, this is actually looking pretty good. Like, we've been like, what? When they finally add enough content for us to play this, they've added a hosptal, World War II bunkers.
Dude, I don't even care about this stuff. I want to go in the disco. That looks like so much fun.
We'll have an after party. They added a naval base. So that's a lot of content. So I mean, that's pretty good for 2 years worth of development. That's a lot of stuff to make in 2 years.
It is. But is it enough? Does it now? I know you and I just watched that video in our chat, and our friend Ross says might be worth trying out ? We all will agree, yes, it's worth trying out, but will we actually try it out?
I'd be willing to have a game night of it. And
we've said this,
but the thing is, it'd have to be a game, but it didn't work last time. We couldn't get in. I could. I was waiting for you to get in. I ran around, gathered some stuff, but you couldn't get in. Ross is pointing out there's more stuff in that than H1 ever had.
Yeah. True.
So, I mean, it's interesting. So one thing they talk about also in this patch, they said we've received a lot of feedback from both tournament participants and viewers alike, and now we're releasing the tournament mode out of the world. So they have a tournament mode that you can do in here. And the rules are, if you leave the zone, you have about 5 seconds to return before dying, because it's like a BR style mode. It has like a zone. You can respawn normally by using fame points but at shelter response prohibited. When the zone is at 10% of its original size, sudden death mode will be activated, which means no more respawns. The winner was the last person to be alive after sudden death is activated. The area is closing in dynamically, and the smallest area has a radius of 1 meter. You will get notified visually and with sound about tournaments being activated a little before tournament starts, start of the tournament, sudden death activation, and tournament ending. And each participant gets a set of starting gear on every respawn, and the starting gear includes a handgun, a backpack, 20 rounds, and some painkillers. So they also added a new weapon, the anniversary bar. They've added some new items like a flask and party glasses, which will go well for our disco.
Heyo.
And then bug fixes and quality of life additions. So I don't know. Awesome. I mean, it might be worth trying it out at some point.
What are you doing Friday night, Brian?
I think I'm around Friday.
So should we play?
We can try
Friday
it.
night?
Yeah, we should try it. I think there's enough in there that now there's things to actually run to. I thought it was really well made. It was fun. It was a fun game, but the thing is there wasn't a ton of people playing it. I actually really liked that whole system that everybody was talking about. Is so complicated with the the health and the body. That once you learn to work it, works very well. And so I really enjoyed that. I didn't find it to be confusing at all. But the initial screen when you pull it up, it looks overwhelming. But once you figure out how to kind of work it, it actually worked out really well. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot of promise with this game. But as I've been saying for the whole time, I'm just waiting for them to get content into it. They got base building, which was a huge thing.
Well, let's put our money where our mouth is. Friday night, be there, be square. 8:00 for our Infection game night, which will take place on our Discord server. You can find the links for that. We're going to be playing SCUM, so make sure you get that downloaded. We'll find a server, and we'll be playing that somewhere in the ballpark of 7 to 8 o'clock Eastern time on our Infection game night. So no excuses. Plenty of notice. All right, let's talk about Arc real quick. I've got a couple of quick updates here, 2 of them to be precise. 3.13.10 fixed a bug which prevented the tech bridge from snapping, increased the tech bridge decay timer, fixed a level up animation glitch with the bear, fixed a level up design related bug such as holes, floating foliages, and incorrect volumes, etc. Fixed a bug which caused the trough, a visual indicator, to reset on load in single player, so the trough would look like it was full, even though it may have actually been out of food, which could be a huge issue. Fixed an exploit used by malicious players. Oh, listen to this, Brian. To gain pin code access to unpin codable structures, so that would they could add pin codes to structures where they shouldn't be able to, and essentially lock
people out of them.
Yeah, of things that they shouldn't have been able to do, yeah. Fixed various broken creature spawns in the Genesis single player. Adjusted the transfer UI's server session list alignment. Fixed a bug where downloaded Titans were not saving on servers. Fixed an exploit with the Crystal Wyvern, the Reaper, the Deinonychus, and then the Basilisk, and then fixed a bug with the Tech Skiff, which would not update its inventory, causing it to be unable to fly, as it assumed it was carrying too many items. So that could be a big issue. And then one quick one on 3.13.11, fixed a bug which stopped the gotcha crystals from providing items upon consumption. So that is all that we've got from Arc, and we are up to date.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Elite Dangerous, and they had a small patch. This isn't going to take very long. First of all, this is 3.7.05. The fixed an issue when reading inbox messages in Super Cruise which caused the game to crash. Imagine that you're doing Super Cruise and you check your email and bam, it's done.
So you send malicious messages. You suck. Open it. Instantly crash the desktop. Yeah.
They fixed a bug causing delays and disconnections when entering a location with fleet carriers present. Could be bad. Fixed the UI focus issue, which allowed players to sell ships in the background while using carrier management. And then with mining, they stopped depleted mother load asteroids from respawning when a player flies a ship launch fighter beyond its maximum limits. So that is that patch. So not very big, but I know they're working on. We talked about it was last week or the week before. They're working on some big things with Elite Dangerous in the coming expansion. So that'll be pretty cool.
Yes.
And then finally your favorite game, or one of your favorite games.
Yeah, I haven't played it in a while, but yes, Dead by Daylight. They've got a huge week going on right now. So we had a new character, the pyramid-shaped guy from Silent Hill just recently got put in the game. And we've got a new set of characters as well. And The game is, by the way, free to play through the 13th, which is Sunday. So it's free to play through the 13th. It's also on sale. It's 60% off, so you can get it for like $8 if you don't already own it. And of course, it is free. Yeah. And here's the trailer for this this new spooky killer and some of the things. And this update went out today. And we'll watch this trailer, and then we'll look at a couple things after that.
Welcome to Dead by Daylight, Chapter 17. Experience the scourge of ambition with Descend Beyond. The new killer is the Blight. A bright and ambitious chemist, Talbot Grimes once sought to enhance humanity through his experimental compounds, only to become a victim of his own ambition. The Blight's power is blighted corruption. Pustula serum courses through his veins, corrupting his mind and body, yet granting him unnatural physical abilities. Special ability, Rush. Press the power button to quickly rush forward. While performing a rush, the Blight cannot launch an attack. Rush into a wall or obstacle to slam onto it. If you fail to connect with a wall or obstacle, you will enter a fatigue state.
That's cool.
Special attack, Lethal Rush. Following a slam, press the power button to launch a lethal rush, which allows you to move quickly and attack survivors. The Blight comes with 3 new perks. Spread your corruption with Dragon's Grip. After damaging a generator, any survivor that interacts with it will scream, revealing their location for a moment, and will be afflicted with the exposed status effect for a brief duration. Offer no mercy with Hex Undying. When Hex Undying is active and a different Hex totem is cleansed, that Hex will be transferred to a dull totem, so long as one exists. When within short range of any totem, survivors' auras are revealed for a moment. Remove any opportunity for escape with Hex Blood Favor. When a survivor is hit, nearby pallets are held in place by the entity for a moment. These pallets cannot be pulled down. New survivor, Felix Richter, a visionary architect. Felix uses his relentless determination to form a plan and help other survivors. Felix comes with 3 new perks. You've always had a knack for seeing what others could not. Show your allies the path to victory with Visionary. If you are in short range of a generator, you can see its aura. Let pressure be your motivator with Desperate Measures. For each injured, hooked, or dying survivor, slightly increase the speed at which you heal and unhook your allies. Get the most out of your tools with Built to Last. Once per trial, a depleted item will have some of its charges refilled. Let ambition drive you, but tread carefully. The line between ambition and hubris is razor thin. Experience the corruption of the Blight and the ambitious spirit of Felix Richter with the Descend Beyond chapter in Dead by Daylight.
I very much dislike everything to do with the Blight. The fact that it runs very fast.
I mean, they did try to
very
put
much dislike
a little bit of a nerf in there, right?
It's like any other update that they do. It is incredibly swayed towards the killer's favor, and it will do nothing but absolutely destroy the survivors. So, but it is out today.
Yeah. Yep. And now they're also doing something else. I don't know if you saw. Is there anything you want to talk specifically about that? Because they're doing kind of another thing as well.
Okay. What else are they doing?
So they're doing, I guess, it's a campaign or something, but they're calling it Descend Beyond or The Realm Beyond. And play that video really quick because it shows they're doing a lot of like graphical enhancements and things to the game. And this, I assume this is a campaign. It's kind of weird, but it's the Realm Beyond project. It says between now and fall of 2021, we'll be introducing a series of free updates to our visuals, graphics, lighting, animations, and more for players on PC, Xbox, and PS4, Switch, Stadia, while also building up to a Dead by Daylight experience for the next generation of consoles. So the project also includes the ongoing support of cross-play, cross-friends, released earlier this summer, and future quality of life improvements to help expand and unify the entity's realm. So this shows some of the differences between the graphics, and they actually do a nice side-by-side. So it gives a good insight to what they're going to be doing.
Oops.
Got it.
So close. This does look pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, you know, this kind of made sense. This game's not always had the hottest graphics, and because it's so dark, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Well, I think they improved it over time too. I mean, you got to think they've been releasing content, maps, and everything else. I think they've gotten better and got to where they can do things better. And so some of these original maps just needed to have a refresh.
Yeah,
too.
and I would agree if you're going to be talking about porting your game over to the new, $500 plus video game system that's going to be releasing later this year, that, your 2013 graphics are not necessarily going to be up to par. So, yeah, this is great. And it's funny because looking at these pictures, it is consoles that are essentially going to push the game to look better for PC.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny. And by the way, some of those updates started today. Firebomb says some of the maps are already changed, but the new killer, F that guy, he sucks. So yeah, I guess
they said for the first major update, they focused on Springwood and Yamaka
something
estate.
Like
and they said they gave it a lot of attention to like lighting to make it the experience of roaming these maps more realistic and engrossing. So,
yeah, I need to
you get your Dead by Daylight on.
Yeah, I got to get that. I got to play SCUM.
Now that you're moved in, kind of settled down a little bit.
Yeah, I have settled down. I have settled down a little bit. I put all my boxes away. Most of my boxes away.
Firebomb saying like Spirits map. He said it's super dark now. You can hide much better.
I want to play Dead by Daylight, but I know I don't.
You will.
It's free though. It's free. It's free all weekend. So I'll hopefully.
Yeah. If there's someone who doesn't own it and hasn't played it, I would encourage you to download it and at least try it, because I think it's definitely it's a very fun game. There's a lot of challenge to it. It's definitely a skill-based game.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very, very fun.
And there is a patch notes. I'll have a link to the patch notes if people want to check that out. But it's mainly, like added the new killer, the Blight, added a new survivor, Felix Richter. A lot of the things that we kind of saw in there, and then a bunch of bug fixes. Yep.
So that is
all right. Well, I think that's it. Did we cover everything? I think we did.
That's all of it on the news front. But of course, it wouldn't be an episode of Infection Podcast without some current players, Brian. So let's jump into that and look at who's playing some different video games here. Starting it off with Ark Survival Evolved, 37,373 playing. That's a palindrome by the looks of it. Yeah, look at that. The 24-hour peak, 59,650 with a 7-day peak, 73,168. Moving on over to Rust, currently playing 43,672. The 24-hour peak, 62,940 with a 7-day peak of 75,880. By the way, they just wiped this, so that kind of makes sense. 7 Days to Die, currently playing this, 20,789 with a 24-hour peak of 25,561 and a 7-day peak of 34,078. Now this one, Last Oasis, struggling. 369 people currently playing. The 24-hour peak, 540 with a 7-day peak of 710. And finally, boy, this game looks like it's a rocket ship success in comparison. Atlas, 1,943 people currently playing that. The 24-hour peak, 2,642 3,235 is your 7-day peak. And that is going to bring us up to date with all of the different video game numbers, Brian, from people. Well, I didn't realize Last Oasis was in that bad of shape. That's
what I was saying.
pretty
Like,
bad.
people look at those numbers. That's the tough part. If you think about Atlas, did the same thing. They set up a system where you had to have a bunch of servers. People move across these servers. This is the exact same thing with Last Oasis. It's a very similar concept of all these different servers, and you can migrate between the servers.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens when you only got 300 something players, and you've set up a system that holds 40,000 people? Well, you're paying for a lot of servers that you're not using very much.
It's like leaving the sink running all the time.
Yeah, I mean, what's the worst going to happen? So these companies are bleeding money, so they need to get players, people buying the game and purchasing things. So
I mean, hey, before I go to work, Brian, every morning I make sure I turn all my faucets on.
I know. I've got so many electronics. My power companies sent me a thing, and they're like, "Do you realize you use like 4 times the electricity of your average person?" I'm just waiting for them to come bust down my door, thinking I'm like growing pot or something in here with all the grow lights, because I have so many electronics in the house.
So much power, yeah.
Yeah, the cops are like, "We got a warrant for your house because you seem to have constant electricity usage." I'm like,
this is my Plex server. This is my ESXi host. This is my NAS. This is my where I get all my legal movies over on this server. Totally legal. Don't look at that. Nope, nothing to see here.
Well, that's the thing is, I've got my nephew's got their computers out there. We've got 3 computers in here. I've got 3 fish tanks running all the time. I've got
you 3 men
consoles,
living, taking showers and eating.
I mean, I have everything working against me as far as having a low cost of living here. So
subscribe to Brian's OnlyFans, folks. Support his.
I need help.
Yeah. Well, send us your subs on Twitch to support Brian's fish tank.
Help pay my bills. All right, well, let's go on to tip of the week. And
yes, sir.
That's where I give either a general gaming tip or one for a specific game. I figured, Conan Exiles is about to have some big new cool thing announced. Might as well give some tips for that. So this is tip of the week. All right, for Conan Exiles, I figured I'd give some just kind of tips for getting started and having some fun in the game. One thing, first of all, this game does go on sale every once in a while. Generally, it's $39.99, but if you can catch it on sale, a lot of times you can get it for fairly cheap, maybe like 60% off. So keep an eye out for that. And maybe with their special announcement tomorrow, they might introduce a sale. So that might be a good time to pick it up. So first of all, with this game, like most of these open world survival games, it's all about gathering as many materials as possible. With those materials, the first thing you want to do is build a base, because you want to store all these materials. I mean, you'll be gathering just a bunch of what seems like useless materials, but you need those to craft your weapons, your armor, and your base. These all cost a lot of resources. Try not to go in and initially pick one location, but like, this is going to be my mega base. Start with a really small base. Later, you'll find the optimal location and things to be able to build a big base. But the starting area that you're in is not the optimal location to build a big base. Once you've created that small base, that it allows you to put a bunch of storage containers in it that you can start stuffing those items into. And you don't want to be carrying them around constantly, because you may reach a situation where you die in a place that's very difficult to get your stuff back, and you don't want to lose all of the things that you value the most. You want to keep those in the base and maybe not go back to your body if you don't have to, if it's too much of a risk to go get it. Once you create that small base, then you want to place a bed in it, because that's going to cause you to respawn in that base. It's a very similar mechanic to a lot of these other open world survival games. But in this game, your items, there's a lot of items that spoil, and they spoil fairly quickly. So you need to they have these thing called a preservation box that you can do that slows down that decay timer. Because if you go and harvest a bunch of meat, stick it in a regular box, it is going to spoil pretty quickly. Try a preservation box, and don't eat the raw meat right away, because it will make you sick. It will cause problems. There is a skill point that you can assign called survival, which allows you to eat raw meat. And that's one of the first ones that I picked up, because it's very easy to get meat. It's kind of a pain to have to go back to your base or create a fire and then cook that meat, because a lot of times you're out roaming around for a long time and you'll get hungry fairly quickly as you move around. It's much easier if you can just sit there and eat raw meat, and it's the same as cooked meat. And that really helps you to stay fat and happy in the game, which is your primary goal, besides staying alive and then building a base. So hopefully that gets you started. But I think that's kind of the general best tips for getting going in this game and then and having it be successful. So that is tip of the week.
Fat and happy. I like that, Brian.
Yes, that's the goal in that game,
Absolutely.
at least. So
Yeah, I mean, that's
all right.
It's my kind of my goal in life too, to be honest with you. No offense.
I know
to
most people
anybody.
are trying to get fat. Well, you have people that are trying to get fat and happy, and then people that are trying to get skinny and happy too afterwards. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
One group is more successful. I'll be the sample. I'll be the sample. For this.
Yeah. All right, let's go and do this game giveaway. And once again, we're giving away a copy of Strange Brigade. So we'll close the raffle, and we will do a draw. And let's see, it didn't show me. I don't have chat.
Oh, it's Judd.
Oh, it's Judd. Congratulations. So you have won a copy of Strange Brigade, and I will send you a message with a link to be able to redeem it. So congratulations.
Yes. The proprietor of the Infection Podcast Extras channel and some of the various assets that you see pre, post, and during the show as well. Thank you very much, Judd. It is greatly appreciated. All right.
All right.
Well,
is there anything else we need to discuss before we close out?
No.
So
2
Friday
hours flew
night,
by.
if people want to come in and come and play some SCUM with us, make sure you get it loaded up and installed, and then we'll jump in and play around some. Hopefully, maybe depending on how the weekend goes, maybe play a little bit over the weekend if we can get a decent base built. Because for us, if we can get a base built and that works well, like it keeps people playing all weekend. So that's going to be my goal, is for us to get a base built so that we can use that as kind of a point of origin. And then people will log in throughout the week and kind of work on it. So we will see if we can get that done.
Yep. And I think it's only $30, so it's not, if you're looking for something, if you got a couple dollars burning a hole in your pocket, it's not too terribly expensive. And at least they constantly update it. If you will or won't like it, I can't answer, but at least it's an active game that they're working on. So we'll see you Friday night for SCUM. But before that, Brian, where can people find you on the interweb?
Well, if you want to find me, you can find me at Brian Aldridge on Parler. Also, you can go to my blog, biteoftech.com. That also has a lot of links to various ways that you can find me on the internet. And go to our website, infectionpodcast.com. If you go to the right-hand side, you'll see join our server on Discord. You can do that to, first of all, participate in the Friday night game night. Or if you want to participate in our show, you can do that by submitting news. If there's a topic that you think we should be covering, just put that in the news channel, and we'll look at that before the next week's show. Also, we have the show notes for all the episodes. So if you're interested in following along after the fact, if you want to watch the show later, you can follow along the website. We have show notes for 295 episodes of the show. If you want to watch it live, we have that on Twitch, YouTube, on BitChute, and DLive. And also we have video forms uploaded to that, so you can watch those as well. We have our podcast extras. So if you want to, just like he was discussing, we have our pre and post show recorded, and you can go check those out on the special channels below the BitChute link, and then all the audio forms. So those are not live. So those are if you want to listen after the fact, but you can listen on a mobile device. You can listen on your computer. A lot of different ways to do that. If you want to support us, you can do that through amazon.infectionpodcast.com or humble.infectionpodcast.com. And as you heard through here, people giving their Prime Gaming subs, and that really pays for packs for us, which next year should be interesting. I think we'll use that as a great opportunity to maybe get some equipment that we use at those PAX events. And we have the extra funds from this year that we would have been spending this past week or this past weekend, but we have those saved up, and we'll come up with a good use for those so that they actually benefit the next PAX that we go to.
Yeah. Or, alcohol and food and hookers and blow.
Yeah, or the other usual things that we do at PAX. So.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, I want to thank thank three individuals: Big Woody Sauce, Bobby J, and Valp, who all hit us up with resubscriptions here, multi-month resubscriptions here on the program. So
we do appreciate it. We got people that have been doing like 30-something months straight of subs to us, and that's huge. That's a huge amount of dedication, and we really do appreciate it.
Yep, we're rapidly approaching 300 here, Brian. Five more weeks, so we're rapidly approaching that.
I don't know if I'm going to be. We'll talk about it in the after show.
Yeah,
but
I'm not sure we're going to make that work, but yeah, well, it is what it is. All right, Brian. Thank you as always. We'll see you Friday night for some SCUM. Well, Hopefully we'll be able to play some Scum. And then we'll see you next Tuesday for another episode of Infection. Alrighty, folks.
See you.
I got something in my eye here. It's awful. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. Of course, you can visit our website. If you missed any portion of the show, links, videos, show notes, patch notes, the whole shebang is on our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.